Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I am Dustin Jackson.
We're back! We are finally back. Hello! Yes, welcome to the 12th season of the Kongversation. And we were gone a little bit longer than we anticipated we would be by a couple of weeks. You know, we're aiming for around mid-February to come back, and it would have been a couple days later than normal anyway, given that Mario vs. Donkey Kong, the Switch remake, which is what we are discussing on this episode, it was going to be released on February 16th. So it's like, well, you know, we'll wait a couple days after that to launch, but generally, everything was kind of pushed back by a couple of weeks due to what happened at the very beginning of the year. And I'll try to be quick here because I've already explained this on the website and to our patrons, but I still think it's a story worth sharing. So, at the end of last season, at the end of last year, I discussed how our top priority, us being DK Vine, DK Vine's top priority for 2024 was fixing our website, which, for those who aren't aware, had become sluggish at its best times and failed to load most other times, with visitors getting hammered by 500 internal server error messages, which is no good when you're trying to build a reliable website, a functioning hub for Donkey Kong Universe and Rare entertainment and news. And this has been going on since around September. We had been having some issues prior to that, like images not loading, this, that, and the other, but it really became noticeable around September when you just couldn't go to the site at times. And this escalated throughout the autumn months, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And then once we hit January, it was like January 1st, all of a sudden the site was down most of the time. You'd go there, you'd get a 500 internal server error message. And as somebody who just went full time with all of this in late October, of course, this is like the worst possible time for this to be happening. I mean, from a certain point of view. Another point of view is it's the best possible time this could be happening because I had the time to devote myself towards solving this. But hashing it out with our hosting provider, and I was on the line with our hosting provider, like on the phone or in the text chat with them, anywhere from 3 to 7 times a week. And we were made to believe through the numerous tech support staff we spoke with that the problem was internal, that it was something to do with how we were coding the site, or maybe our refusal to use WordPress, because we are not a WordPress site. We're just rogue. We do our own things. And WordPress, by the way, which is now selling off its site's contents to AI companies. More on that in a second. But this led to a maddening 9-day stretch at the beginning of 2024 where I could do nothing else but try to figure out why our website was not working, which was like a needle in a haystack. And, our site's been around in some permutation or another since 1999. It's kind of evolved and grown as the internet has. We're not, the same website we were in 1999 as far as code goes, but there is a lot of old code rattling about in its bones. And, I know a little bit, but I'm not an expert at that. Like, the expert on the staff is Matt. And so Matt and I spent 9 days devoting all of our time towards fixing DK Vine because I couldn't do anything else. DKVine.com is the beating heart, the central hub of our empire, if you want to call it that, of everything we do. Like, I realize not everyone uses the website because it's not $19.99 anymore. And some of our audience only listens to this podcast, or maybe they subscribe to us on YouTube, or they just follow us on social media. But all of that stuff to me is ephemeral without the site to back it up. I mean, we host the podcast on the site, right? So
Right.
we didn't know. And it is somebody who, I've been open about my struggles with bipolar 2, which there are two sides to bipolar 2. I mean, there's obviously the occasional manic episode, but there's also just depression. But there's also anxiety. When you're not depressed and you're not manic, that energy usually manifests as just low latent anxiety, humming at all times. And when you're somebody who puts so much of himself into his work, I was just, climbing the walls for 9 days, much to the chagrin of the rest of the staff who were telling me to shut up and sit down, walk away from it. But I couldn't. And I didn't know what was causing it. I was like getting ready to hire outsiders to come in, pour over our code like they were Neo in the Matrix and try to figure out what was causing all of this, why everything was now breaking almost 25 years into our run. And was it even on our end, or was it our hosting provider? We were talking about pulling up stakes from our hosting provider, which, we've had occasional issues with them in the past due to not being a WordPress site, and then just assuming we are, and then, they'll change something, and then all of a sudden our site doesn't work, and then we have to tell them, hey, knock it off. And then it's fine. But, otherwise they've always been very reliable and a good platform for us. So I'm always very hesitant to pull up stakes from something. I'm a homebody at heart. So, it's like, no, I want to be happy here. I don't want to have to move. Moving sucks. So anyway, all that to say, I had a theory in October, shortly after this all started, that was actually shot down by one of the tech support people I was talking to. Like, I brought it up to them. I was like, do you think it could be this? And they were like, no, it couldn't be that.
No way.
So, of course, I dismissed it then because I don't know what I'm talking about. Tech support knows what they're talking about. I mean, they're the experts. I'm just an idiot with a Donkey Kong website.
Obviously, they would know.
Yeah.
Right?
So, anyway, it was a week into January, and we were seeing no light at the end of this tunnel. And I was just defeated. I was miserable, Dustin. And then the first Saturday night in January, a Hostmaster rep who had been assisting us with troubleshooting earlier that week finally got back to us days later and suggested the very same theory I had in October. Now, ironically, it was the same night that Andrew/Ape of the Idaho crew also thought about this and posited, hey, do you think it could be this? So the stars suddenly aligned. And the theory was that AI bots, scrapers, as they call them, were coming in and targeting DKVine for, among other things, our robust artwork gallery of renders going back to 1994. Not even our own,
Yeesh.
Not even our own works, right? Just the stuff created by Rare, Nintendo, Playtonic that we were displaying because we really love old plasticky renders from the Super Nintendo era. So, yeah, bot scrapers, they come in, these, AI, the AI boom, it was cryptocurrency a couple years ago. Then it was, the blockchain, and now it's,
right.
those apes, those yacht apes,
the Bored Apes, yeah.
It was that. NFTs, that's what they're called. I don't even remember because
those are the ones.
I don't even remember because that's how fast the tech industry just burns through the future. But
it's so far in the past now.
Yeah. So the AI boom, which really started the middle of last year, they're sending out bot scrapers across the internet and trying to absorb as much of the collective knowledge and works on the internet as they can to steal and basically fuel their resource-heavy AI programs. So this was effectively causing a DDoS situation at DKVine, denial of service, where it wasn't a malicious attack necessarily. It wasn't a targeted attack like what happened to us in 2016. This was just unscrupulous tech companies pillaging smaller websites to serve their bottom line. And we hadn't even noticed at first because we got a genuine uptick in traffic last year because of the hype and excitement around the Super Mario Brothers movie. All of a sudden, people were searching for Donkey Kong, and they were finding DKVine. And so we just naturally grew our audience because of current events. And we didn't realize the gradual uptick then of AI bots coming in until we started reaching critical mass with it. And the outsized pings from certain IPs were sliding in unnoticed until they broke the site. And somebody at HostMonster finally concurred with my dusty old theory that it was AI bots. As many as 45,000 AI bots were scraping our website on a daily basis, sometimes hourly.
Wow.
And so as a test, Matt, the Sunday morning immediately after we got this, Matt purged some of the more obvious ones that he discovered, and the site began to stabilize, meaning we were onto something. So anyway, a couple days later, we instituted a very expensive firewall, and it solved everything. The site has been working at the highest levels it has for a long, long time. No 500 internal server errors, no issues whatsoever, smooth as butter, or margarine, or some other whipped yellowy substance. But I say all of this, Dustin. This is a weird way to start the season, I know, but I've just been dying to talk about it on our podcast. I say all of this to explain why everything was pushed back a couple of weeks, because I've kind of been playing catch up all year ever since. And also just to lament the state of everything right now. I mean, gee, how dystopian is this? Jeez. Like, a website like DKVine would absolutely not be possible to launch by dumb teenagers with little money to their name in 2024. We couldn't do it today like we did a quarter century ago. And I mean, granted, today, if we were dumb teenagers, we'd just start a TikTok account or something where we do little dances as Donkey Kong. But the only reason we were able to come back from this was that we have spent 25 years building up a name, enough of a brand, if you will, even though that seems a kind of weird thing to say. But we were supported by our wonderful patrons, right? Like, our patrons grew enough where I could do this. I could make a go of doing this full time. And the patrons literally saved DKVine's ass here, because we were able to afford a firewall and restore functionality to the website. But I just want to say, when this happened and I made it public on social media on our website, a lot of other smaller sites reached out to me saying, "Oh my God, I've been having problems too. I think you've solved it." And,
Ooh.
Yeah, so my heart does go out to any other smaller websites, be they fan sites or just anybody not working under a heavily fortified wall of money by corporations here. Because, without the resources that we are able to have, which aren't much, but, they are enough where we could solve this problem. It really does make me question the future of the independent internet. If this robber baron style tech bro capitalism is just cannibalizing everything, it sucks. Shit sucks, Dustin. And I know you're an artist, and you'll agree with me about the AI problem. But yeah, so thank you to our patrons. It was a really stressful start of the year, but I feel really good about 2024 as it relates to DK Vine, the Donkey Kong universe, everything that we entail. And if you would like to support independent Donkey Kong journalism and entertainment, then think about becoming a DK Vine patron at dkvine.com/Patreon. I can say this once again. We would not be here without our patrons. So thank you.
Thank you. That sounded sarcastic. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's a weird thing to say thank you to the people who give money to Donkey Kong journalism. But, it really is. Anyway, we do live stream these recordings of our podcast to our $5 and up patrons. And I just want to give a shout out right now. It's our season premiere. Give a shout out to everyone in the live stream chat. We got Freezer. We got March Rose. We got Porygon Q. Got Luffy Dawn. And we've got Gem. We've got Given in the chat, who has a vested interest in our topic at hand today.
Hey.
But before we get to that, I'm not done with due diligence, Dustin, and you'll have to forgive me because I haven't been able to do this in over 2 months now.
I'll forgive you this once.
Well, I got some big, exciting news, all right? I want to share about the future of DK Vine and the ability to do bigger and bolder things with the site and our output and our entertainment. So, on the subject of earning money for DK Vine, one of my goals with doing DK Vine, committing to DK Vine as my full-time job, was to pull in enough to earn a comfortable living. I'll never be rich, and I don't really want to be rich, as weird as that is to say. Nothing about being wealthy really appeals to me. I just want to have enough money to do what I want, have fulfilling work, hopefully entertain people, and not have to worry about, paying the bills, which is getting harder to do, all the time. But Patreon makes that possible. And, for the last couple of years, Patreon has been the only income DK Vine has really had. One of the reasons I've never devoted myself fully to YouTube, at least since 2018, has been because that was the year that we were demonetized on YouTube. A story I've shared quite a bit here on the podcast in previous seasons. It was due to their algorithm bots. Here we go again with the bots, thinking that the Kongversation was someone else's podcast that the DK Vine YouTube channel was just uploading. And
that's bizarre.
Yeah, but a lot of people do that, or a lot of people did that back then. And since we are putting every episode on YouTube, the bots didn't like that very much. So we were demonetized. And since then, the past 6 years, I've never been able to get the situation rectified. Because, we're not enough of a big name per YouTube to get our fans to raise enough of a stink to get a human operator at Google to flip the switch that's necessary to just, turn the spigot back on for cash. So, but I still wanted to build our YouTube channel because we do have lovely patrons and I want to produce content for them. I don't like the word content though, Dustin. Can I just say that? Can I be upfront? I'm going to try to use the word content less.
I'm there with you.
Content conjures a lot of ugliness in my mind, where it's just this mentality where you've got to churn out content.
Yeah, we're just shoveling out slop.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that. I never want to do that. I never want to just be a mill producing just empty, void crap because we're monetized and we got to bring in the bucks and we got to trick people into clicking. I never want that to be my calling here. So, but I wanted to build up videos on our YouTube channel for our patrons at the very least, and just anybody who would enjoy them. And it's just been hard to justify it because there's been no monetary possibility there. And so how can I devote my resources and my time? And so that just meant concentrating on everything else. And anyway, so that being said, over the last year, YouTube finally made themselves more accommodating to podcast. A little late in the game there, but they finally has some built-in integration for podcast at long last. And as such, their algorithm has recognized the Kongversation as a legitimate podcast and classified it as such in their system. I didn't do a damn thing. The algorithm actually backed me up for once. So earlier this week, I got our demonetization overturned. And we're finally restored as YouTube partners. So, yeah, I'm very, very pleased. It's more of a relief than any cause for jubilation, but
right,
it's great timing because money or no, I was dedicating myself more to growing our YouTube channel. In December, I launched a new series called DKU Lore Tour, which it was kind of something I was doing on social media for a bit. Let me go on this long ramble about some arcane bit of DKU lore, exploring the surprising connections and the rich history of the franchises in Rare's shared universe. And decided to make that a video series where I could really kind of stretch my muscles a little bit and have fun with the topic I love above all else, which is how the continuity kind of links together between Donkey Kong and Banjo and Conquer and Grab by the Ghoulies and It's Mr. Pants and Viva Pinata and Ukulele and Sea of Thieves, etc. So the first episode was about the surprising in-universe renown and celebrity of Rattly the Rattlesnake, which was just a nice, easy way to get my feet wet with the concept. The second installment from January was about Mario vs. Donkey Kong, our topic for today. And then the latest episode went live last week, all about Kremlantis from Donkey Kong Land and the Rare Archipelago during the Age of Antiquity. So check those out if you haven't. Most people seem to be digging them. Some people hate them, but that's okay. That's showbiz, baby. And
I'm true. That's true. That's a good attitude to have. I love them personally. I love these videos. Yeah,
no, the latest video I think is the thing I'm the proudest of that DK Vine's ever done.
It's so good.
Thank you. And so if you like it, more is coming. But I'm also working on some other videos right now, and I'm basically always cooking up multiple dishes for the DK Vine buffet, whether they be podcasts, whether they be videos, whether they be articles. So be sure to subscribe to DK Vine on YouTube. And then finally, Dustin, because I know I've been rambling for quite a long time. I know I'm just blah, 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 blah.
Ramblin' Russell.
I would like to remind everyone that DK Vine has a merch shop on TeePublic. It's been operating for over a year now, and aside from TeePublic cutting our profits in half because they think we're using AI designs of all things, and then
Man, what a weird repeating subject for all of these problems we have.
Well, wait for it, Dustin, because then bots from Paramount CBS got our Frasier parody t-shirt and mug pulled from the shop. But aside from those, it has been a wonderful way to finally get to make some DKU inspired products that I've always wanted to have personally. And, the Kong College hoodie, that we put out. I've been wearing it all winter long. It's so comfy and it's so fun to wear. Look at me. My collegiate shirt is Kong College. But yeah, new products are added every month. We just put up our Fab Fur band shirts this month. Last month we had a Dino Domain Jurassic Park parody, which the design idea was from our own Jeff Oden. And
great one.
Yeah, and We also had the Tip Top Sweet shirt I've been threatening you all with on the Kongversation in the past. So finally was able to make a Cum Stain t-shirt. So check that off my bucket list. So dkfine.com/merchandise, or just find us on TeePublic. And that brings us back to the Kongversation at long last, Dustin. And we've got one hell of a year planned for all of you. It's season 12 of the Kongversation, as I've said. And for the next month, we will have 2 full-length episodes a week.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, 8 episodes in 1 month. And got a lot of topics to get through because it's going to be a busy year. And we know it's going to be a busy year because, look, we've got the opening of the Donkey Kong Country theme park, right? Universal Studios Japan, the one in the United States in Orlando, that opens next year. We've got the 30th anniversary of where our fandom truly began, Donkey Kong Country, this November. And of course, we're waiting for news, hopefully, for a new Donkey Kong game, among other things. So, on that note, I wanted to give a shout out to you, Dustin, because this season's album artwork was once again crafted by you, your 4th in a row, and it honors both of the big news stories that we know of this year. The opening of the Donkey Kong Country theme park, along with the roller coaster, Minecart Madness, and the 30th anniversary of Donkey Kong Country, as well as the 25th of Donkey Kong 64, because we've got this lovely Indiana Jones parody design t-shirt. Well, it's going to be a t-shirt. We're going to put it on a t-shirt. It's going to be available in the shop next month, but it's our album artwork. It's our aesthetic for the year, or if you're watching it on YouTube or listening on SoundCloud or what have you. Because if there's one thing that Gen Z and Gen Alpha love, it's Indiana Jones.
It's true.
No, I'm having a laugh because the last movie bombed so terribly. Yeah, it's fine. No, they're not that they're not that good, but I like Short Round. So anyway, yeah, great job, Dustin. I think this is your best work yet.
Oh, thank you. It means the world to me. I'm always happy to do these.
Well, are you always happy to talk about Mario versus Donkey Kong?
Not always.
So, Mario v. Donkey Kong. Dawn of Justice. The Switch remake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong came out on February 16th of this year. Now, this is a gussied up version of the Game Boy Advance original. Modernizing the graphics, adding a couple new worlds. There's a new casual, i.e. easy mode. If the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong is just too intense for you. And they've also added a 2-player couch co-op with a second player taking the reins of Toad. Toad, my favorite. Yeah, this is going to be a weird one, Dustin. And I kind of designed it to be a weird one. So I guess I'll start. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a game I traditionally have not liked very much. I'm gonna be frank with you. Okay?
Okay. You can be frank and I'll give me a name to be.
Well, I wanted you to pick your own made up name for the episode.
Lawrence. I'll be Lawrence.
I'll be Frank and you'll be Lawrence. So
Frank and Lawrence, that's good. I like this dynamic.
Yeah, I never really I guess you could say liked the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong game.
I'm not a big fan of it either.
In fact, you might say I despised it.
Wow, that's a strong opinion.
I utterly loathed it. I imagined that the sweet release of death would be a preferable outcome to ever playing it again. Now, that might be hyperbolic, right? That might be a bit much.
Maybe.
When we're talking about a relatively innocuous, charming Game Boy Advance game from 2004. But I just didn't like the idea when it came out. Because originally it was going to be Donkey Kong Plus, right? It was going to be more of a direct follow-up to Donkey Kong 94 with the arcade iteration of Donkey Kong and everything. But then post-buyout, it was reconfigured as Mario versus Donkey Kong with the Donkey Kong Country style Donkey Kong, even reusing Grant Kirkhope's audio clips from Donkey Kong 64. And, you know, I didn't like the idea of Donkey Kong being a villain again. I didn't really think it was a good direction to go, especially at the height of the Donkey Kong Country is overrated trash discourse in the mid-aughts.
Right.
And I didn't like the story of Donkey Kong losing his mind over Mario figurines.
Like Mario's so cool, he has to have all these Mario toys.
Right, not only does it kind of throw Donkey Kong under the bus, but it does so just to build up Mario, that Mario is such a fucking stud that...
Yeah, as if Mario needed it, even.
Yeah, that this piece of shit gorilla who's abducting the factory workers at his toy factory wants this little effigy of him. Like, it just, everything about it was like salt in the wound to me in 2004.
Right.
So, you know, and that's all, like, not even getting into, like, is the game fun? Does the game play well? This is all just incidental stuff designed to rankle me personally. Not, like, designed to rankle me personally, but it did rankle me. You know, it did upset the apple cart in my brain. And
it was just kind of a perfect storm of things that, felt against you at the time,
or just where the winds were blowing, and the winds were blowing against everything I loved about Donkey Kong at that time.
Right.
Even the one bit of the game I did sort of like back in 2004, which was kind of the effort made to mimic Rare's ACM graphics a little bit, having that like kind of pre-rendered art style. I now realize was just ugly and foul. The game's ghastly to look at. When I slush funded the game back in 2010, I actually actively grew depressed playing it. It was a demoralizing experience.
I'm sorry, Hyle.
Oh no, but I'm getting to something. Because I can sense Jem is getting ready to throttle me. I've made my peace with the original game in the years since. Because like all dramas of the buyout era, it was mitigated greatly in the 2010s with Donkey Kong Country Returns, the Rare Renaissance, and the popular conceptions re-embrace of Donkey Kong Country in general. All those think pieces from the mid-2000s about how Donkey Kong Country was overrated, Rare were a bunch of hacks, like, all of that is kind of in the rearview mirror for the most part. And
right.
It also helps that each subsequent Mario vs. Donkey Kong game did seem to kind of go out of its way to soften Donkey Kong's villainous role a little bit. Like, with each game, I feel like they made him less of a villain. Up to the point where, like, the last entries of the franchise just had him pranking Mario to throw him a surprise party, or there outright not being any hostilities between them at all. Like, there's the entry that's just Mario and Donkey Kong, rather than Mario versus Donkey Kong.
Working together as buddies.
Yeah, and then there's Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge, which there's just no slap fight there between them at all. So, my initial criticisms of the game and the series as a whole, I would say they do remain, but I wanted to go into this with a clear head. I wasn't that enthused about there being a remake to Mario vs. Donkey Kong for all the reasons I just stated. But I didn't want to go into this being like, yeah, I hate this. Oh, this is going to be the worst time ever. Poo, poo, poo. Because I try to be even-handed when it comes to anything that doesn't necessarily dial itself into my own wants and desires. I'm not the same person I was even back in 2010. So, I was like, I'm going to give this a fair shot this time around. And I'm also not going to try to rain on the parade of anybody who genuinely does enjoy this being given. I didn't want to just go in there saying like, you're wrong if you like this, because of course you're not wrong. It's all a matter of preference. It's all a matter of taste.
Yeah.
We're all different people. We all want and like and appreciate different things. That's what makes the world a beautiful place. And so, well, that and little baby animals.
That's true. I do like those little baby animals. Those are probably the best part.
I put that just a little hair above, including the baby hairs. Over everybody having different, likes, but it's close second. So,
yeah,
I think my biggest issue with Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and I've been on record as saying this before, aside from certain gameplay stylings of the original, some returning enemies from the DK arcade series, like the originals or Donkey Kong 94, the idea, the conceit of Mario and Donkey Kong fighting for some reason or another, and then the later inclusion of Pauline in the sequels, there's very little to warrant Donkey Kong's inclusion in these games, in my opinion. This isn't so much Mario vs. Donkey Kong in a way that such phrasing would conjure up, the forces of the Mushroom Kingdom doing battle with Donkey Kong Island. It's not an equal, 50-50 battle, is it? It's Donkey Kong in a Mario game as the enemy, effectively supplanting Bowser, a little bit more of a friendlier, furrier Bowser, because it's not treating each as an equal. It's not letting fans of either one pick a side. Donkey Kong is just the antagonist, and look, I don't know if you know this about me, Dustin. I keep it a closely guarded secret, but I'm a Donkey Kong fan.
No way.
Yeah. When I first played a Donkey Kong game, which was Donkey Kong Classics for the NES, I vastly preferred Donkey Kong Jr. over the original Donkey Kong because I got to play as the gorilla. And it was terrific.
Right, you have more of a connection when you get to play as him.
Yeah, and then Donkey Kong Country came out, and game over for anything else at that point, right? It was just all about Donkey Kong Country for me. I like the character of the modern Donkey Kong. I love his cast. I adore his world. And so this is a textbook example of making a product that's not appealing to me whatsoever, albeit one that I do respect the opinion of anyone who does dig the aesthetics and gameplay of these games. So let's take a call from Gibbon to get it out of the way.
I'd love to,
because okay, I got to be upfront with you. I was leaning towards having Gem on this episode, because she, of course, is our resident Mario vs. Donkey Kong fan on staff. And Conker.
Right, which makes sense.
And Conker fanatic, weirdly enough. The weirdest dichotomy of interest that anybody on staff brings. But she loves Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Always has. And of course, co-founded the website dkgirder.com as kind of a friendly counterpart to dkvine.com, an arcade era website as a counterpart to the Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Universe based DKVine. And so initially I was going to of course I'll have Gem on this episode, but I thought that would be too easy, especially when I started playing this. And I formed a different opinion than I expected to have. And then I learned of your opinion on it, Dustin. And I was like, I think this would be a far more interesting episode if we just make Jem sit it out entirely, because people know what she's going to say. And so that's why she's not on this episode, but I knew she was going to call in, and I knew I was going to play the call near the top of our discussion. So let's go ahead and play her call for Mario vs. Donkey Kong, parentheses, Switch.
Hi, I'm Gibbon. I feel somewhat obligated to call in for this one. Let's see. The original Mario vs. Donkey Kong was what caused me to be a bit of a notoriety on DK Vine back in the day, being the sole outspoken defender of the series in the community at the time. And look how far we've come. I'll try to be a little brief here. While the updated graphics are nice, they've lost some of the pre-rendered charm from the GBA version, and they've left out some iconic animations like throwing the minis at the screen to break open their Pokeballs. The music is about the same quality, I'd say. Not like outstanding, but decent enough. I really like the new levels. They've integrated well, provide some new challenges for those of us who played the OG a lot. I was a smidge worried about the inclusion of Miniland breaking the canon since it wasn't originally introduced this early, but I think it can be massaged. Overall, quite a good remake, though not perfectly the way I'd like, and I'm looking forward to listening to Hyle taking up my seat on the defendant's side of the case this episode. Haha, and good luck.
Thank you for the call, Jem. So, yeah, Dustin, without like getting too into it too early, I have more positive things to say about this remake than I expected. And I gather you hate it.
So hate is a strong word. I strongly dislike it, but I don't think it's obviously not the worst thing in the world. It's a functional product. That's where my compliments end.
Ow, Dustin. Oh,
no, there's some other stuff I like about it.
No, I laughed so hard I actually like pulled something in my side. Ow.
Oh my goodness. I caused an accident.
It's a functional product, Dustin Jackson.
Put that on the back of the box.
Oh, yeah, so just to explain to everybody real quick, for those of you who haven't played Mario vs. Donkey Kong, either the GBA original or the Switch remake, the basic game is structured. You got 6 regular levels, with the levels kind of split in 2. The first half of the level sees Mario trying to reach the key to unlock the door to the second half of the level. And the second half of the level is where the mini Mario figure is stationed, that you need to pick up to clear the level. And along the way, there are also 3 stolen presents that Donkey Kong, I guess, swiped from the Mario Toy Company. And so, you go out of your way to get those, and then get the key, pick up the mini Mario figure, you've cleared the stage. But it's a puzzle platformer, so it's all about how do you achieve these objectives? How do you reach each thing? It's a lot of various hitting switches, changing the colored blocks, figuring out how to evade enemies, this, that, and the other. And there's also mini Mario stages where you have to guide the mini Marios to the toy chest, and along the way trying to collect the toy letter blocks, very similar to Kong letters. You got to get the T, the O, and the Y. And then that leads directly to the fight at the end of each world with Donkey Kong. The amount of mini Marios you've rescued in the world are your hit points there. And you gotta wallop Donkey Kong with something. And that's basically the game, how it's structured, at least in the first half. So, I have the weird opinion. Weird in that it's atypical from how these things usually go. That I actually had fun with this remake, while you despise it. Or you think it's a functioning product, which is high praise, but that's as far as it'll go. I think two things are going on that allow me to enjoy this a little bit more now than I could back in 2010 or 2004 even. I call it the Jungle Beat effect. So when Donkey Kong Jungle Beat came out around the same time in the West, the year following Mario vs. Donkey Kong, mistranslated interview aside, it was viewed as this wildly different take on Donkey Kong. And it made fans, purists even, of the Donkey Kong Country elements, specifically the Donkey Kong Country characters, a bit worried. Because this was the post-buyout. This was the buyout era. This was when the future of Donkey Kong was not certain, without Rare as the guiding creative force behind it. So it was just a wild, unruly time to be a fan of DK, with numerous competing directions going on simultaneously. And
right.
When I tried when I tried Donkey Kong Jungle Beat again after Donkey Kong Country Returns came out, I loved it. I actually loved it. I was actually a bit mad at how much I was enjoying it.
How dare I enjoy this?
It was a big, eating crow moment for me. Then I was a vegetarian and now I'm a vegan. And I would never stuff a crow in my mouth, Dustin. I just won't do it.
Yeah, eating crow is one of your least favorite things to do.
Yeah, no. Vegans don't eat crow. This was long before we found out that infamous interview with Yoshiaki Koizumi was mistranslated. And that Koizumi never said that Donkey Kong Country characters weren't fresh enough for today's gamers. All he actually said was that Jungle Beat was such a wild swing that it was unbefitting of conventional or traditional Donkey Kong game elements. It would do them a disservice to put them in Jungle Beat. And so that 9 years before we found that out, I was like, damn, Jungle Beat's kind of fun. Shit. So I was able to come to that opinion because I had already let go a little bit because we got Donkey Kong Country Returns. Diddy Kong had by that point been in Brawl, and there was no worry about the future of certain aspects of the series. So very similarly, here we are in 2024, and despite it being a long stretch since a new standalone Donkey Kong game, we have had very good reason to be optimistic for Donkey Kong's future. Donkey Kong Country is the template of the series going forward. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a remake done by the original developers, Nintendo Software Technology Corporation, out of Redmond, intended to both honor the 20th anniversary of the original game, which was the studio's first full game, and to sort of ride the renewed interest in Mario and Donkey Kong stemming from the Super Mario Brothers movie. I mean, I view this very much as a calculated, oh hey, wouldn't it be great to get a Mario vs. Donkey Kong game on store shelves now, considering all of the hype that's left over from Donkey Kong being in the Super Mario Brothers movie, one of the favorite elements from the Super Mario Brothers movie. So
yeah, really capitalize on that energy.
And I don't blame them one bit. I would do the same thing. So the overall way...
Yeah, that makes sense.
The overall way this game is being presented to us is vastly different, I feel, than it was in 2004. I've grown as a person too, so I'm not going to come into this guns blazing like Danny DeVito. I'm going to, I'm going to generally try to be open-minded. And yeah, I've seen it with the marketing of this game too, because I was a little bit leery how they were going to market this game, because a lot of people weren't around for the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Either they were too young or they just weren't part of the fandom at the time, and the marketing this time around has been really cautious, I've noticed. and careful to stress that Mario and Donkey Kong are frenemies this time around, rather than Donkey Kong just being a villainous chode. So it feels different than them just trying to pull off a calculated reset back to the arcade era. It just feels like, oh yeah, here's this remake of a Game Boy Advance game from 20 years ago. Donkey Kong's not such a bad guy. He and Mario just sometimes get into it, but it's all good. It's all good. So, when I sat down to play it, my copy arrived a little bit earlier than expected. The first thing I was taken with, once I got into the gameplay itself, was just how much more I was digging the puzzle platforming this time around. And these aren't the most challenging puzzles in the world. That's why, like, the inclusion of the casual mode, I was a little bit like...
Seems weird.
Yeah, like, I get it. If you're a really young player, if you're a little baby, no, then it might be a bit much. But, that being said, I don't know how much this game... I guess this game might appeal to people who, like, kids who had seen the Mario movie, and they're like, yeah, I want that, and then it just goes right over their head. So I can understand the casual mode for that reason, but it's a very gentle platformer, puzzle platformer. So it's just, like, I've really no interest in trying out the casual mode. So... I felt, though, playing it, that it was much more satisfying this time around to, get the lay of the land in each level, figure out which direction to move in, which switches to hit, or where the mini Marios needed to move. And I think it's just the sort of thing that's kind of breezy entertainment that's bereft of stress.
Right.
I found myself just kind of compulsively playing through it, and not really wanting to put it down. And I kind of hate that I have to say that in front of Gibbon.
Ooh, you have to eat pro again? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, now, again, this is not my preferred direction for Donkey Kong, or for anything, really. But as a game removed from all of the drama surrounding Donkey Kong as a villain, or Donkey Kong being chained to Mario, or any of that, I think it's a cute, charming little game. And I was pleasantly surprised by this in a way that is just totally different from my reaction to the Game Boy Advance version, which was revulsion and horror.
Oh, that is a step up.
Yeah. Dustin, I have to ask, did you have as much trouble, though, with the controls at first as I did?
I think at first I did a little bit, but I got used to it. I think the thing I kind of kept forgetting about was if you do a handstand and you do a jump with that, you can do another jump after that.
Yeah.
I kept forgetting that. So it took me a while to remember that you could get a higher jump from the handstand, because one of the little tutorial boxes brings up how you can get a higher jump from doing a backflip from the where you like run a little bit and then hold back and then jump backwards. So it's that kind of tripped me up in that you have two different ways you can do a high jump, which is good. It's good to have more than one option, but I kept forgetting one way to do it. I was like, do I do it this way? Oh, wait, no, I do it this way.
For me, I think I struggled with it at first, because this game has gotten an overhaul. It looks like a modern Mario game. Like, right. Visually, it doesn't have that same aesthetic as the GBA original. And because of that, I expected Mario to move in a certain way. And he's far stickier, more stunted than Mario might typically be in a game where he looks like this. And
right.
Where I really had trouble was the hit detection, where like the amount of times I would jump on one of the wind-up Shy Guys and just would die because I wasn't like completely flush with the top of its head. It was flat out embarrassing for me. Like it turns out I'm bad at video games, and that was a sobering realization. But once I got the hang of it, it took about until I got to World 2, but then I felt comfortable enough with the way the game plays. But it's been a while since, I picked up a game and I'm just expecting it to control completely differently than it does. And I think it controls pretty faithfully to the GBA original, but it's just the way the brain operates. It sees visuals like this, and then your muscle memory from other things kick in. And it takes a while to overcome that.
I should clarify that when we were playing it on our Idaho Crew streams, we were also playing on co-op mode with Mario and Toad. And I feel like that also kind of made it a little frustrating to control. Not all the time. Usually it was fine, but there'd be like a few times where... so one character can jump on the other character's head, and not all the time, but sometimes that would lead to unnecessary deaths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was watching your stream, and there were a lot of unnecessary deaths.
Yeah, a few might have been underselling it. There were a high number of them.
So, as Gibbons said in her call, they've added 2 new worlds. They added the Merry Mini Land as the new World 4, which bumps Spooky House to World 5, and they added Slippery Summit as the new World 6, which bumps the original World 5, Mystic Forest, to World 7. Are you keeping track?
Oh, I'm keeping track, all right. I got all this written down.
Now, what Gibbon alluded to is Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini Land Mayhem utilized the Mini Land concept. It's the Mario vs. Donkey Kong game that came out a week before Donkey Kong Country Returns. And this retcons Mini Lands during the events of the original game. How does that work? But for me, it aligned perfectly with my fanon, or headcanon, if you will. Because there's a theme park in World 4, and my fanon was always that the Donkey Kong jungle that takes place in World 2 is not the Congo jungle. It's not on Donkey Kong Island. It's the Donkey Kong themed area of Mario Land, which debuted in Mario Party 2, and where I argue that DK Mountain and Dino Jungle from off of Double Dash take place.
Right.
I argued that was the Donkey Kong themed area of Mario Land, and that Fire Mountain World 3 is presumably one of those volcanoes in the background. And
that makes sense.
Donkey Kong just ran to the closest thing to home turf he had, which was the themed area based on him in a pre-existing theme park, which, fiction becomes reality 20 years later, as we're about to get a Donkey Kong themed section of a Nintendo theme park in real life. But even though like the concept of Mini Land itself is derived from a later Mario vs. Donkey Kong sequel, it could all be part of the same tapestry. Just like Universal is expanding into Epic Universe. Mini Land. Here's the new Mini Land section of Mario Land.
What did you think of these 2 new worlds, Hyle? Because it's been so long since I played the original. I had just... I didn't know that these were new worlds. I totally forgot they weren't even in the original. I was just like, I don't remember this. Must have been longer than I thought.
Honestly, it's been over a decade since I played the original that I also didn't get any sense of, wow, this is new from these worlds. I obviously knew they were new, but they've kind of just integrated seamlessly for me. There wasn't this weird kind of out of body experience like when you play the Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Advance remakes, and then all of a sudden there's a new boss fight or a new world, or there's Chunky and Lanky and Tiny floating in a lake. it was just like, oh yeah, this just feels like it's part of the game.
Yeah, I think it helps that I feel like so some worlds do this better than others, but I feel like no world really does like a great job of capitalizing on its theme. So it didn't feel like these levels were that different from the levels that were already in the game to begin with.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we talk about the worlds, we talk about the levels. You know, each level in a world has basically the same background, and you know, it just I don't know. I like the way the backgrounds look for the world. Like Donkey Kong Jungle, I thought looked lovely, but it's all just very like transparent window dressing, basically, for the puzzles themselves. And
exactly,
for me, it's not the most immersive game, right? So there's like the weird visual disconnect that I was getting with the original because of the art style. I don't really get here, but it does feel just very like, oh yeah, we're dropping this background in here. I'm not really feeling like I'm physically in a location, but it's fine for what it is.
For this kind of game, it's fine. And I think some levels have better backgrounds than others. Like the DK Jungle is cool. I really like the forest one.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I actually don't care for Merry Miniland that much. I love theme park levels, but this one just feels like the most generic take on a theme park you could possibly have. Nothing really that interesting about it, but you know, it's fine.
Yeah, it's basically a carnival, effectively, and
yeah. Here's some tents. Here's a circus tent. That's about what you get.
Yeah, if you really want to make an effective like, carnival stage, you got to have some clown jump scares.
See, I wouldn't be in this negative position here if they had some of those.
I want to be playing Mario versus Donkey Kong for the Switch. And I just want maybe a 1 out of 1,000 chance that a clown jumps up in front of the screen and just shrieks at me. Blood-curdling scream.
Yeah, I want to be playing this on the bus and then have that pop up and go, and have everyone look at me and I have to say, oh, sorry, everybody. I was just playing this Mario Donkey Kong game and a clown jumped out and it was scary.
Yeah.
But I'm okay.
The biggest missed opportunity for the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series on the 3DS was the lack of clowns reaching out to strangle your throat and drag you to the grave. Like, why even have the 3D effects?
Yeah, right? Maybe someday game designers will figure out, get their priorities in order.
Ugh, tisk.
Then the snow level, Slippery Summit, I hate because the ice physics are they're like the worst I've ever felt in a game.
Yeah.
I was so frustrated by them. Like, it would feel like you would not stop as fast as you should, but then if you, like, jump to try to position yourself a little better, you would just go flying forward, and it was extremely frustrating.
And the thing is, Mario has work boots, right? He wears, like, shoes made for traction. Like, it's like he's wearing no shoes at all. He's just sliding around on his bare feet.
Yeah, totally. He should be prepared for this sort of thing.
Yeah. And, you know, if Mario was sliding around on his bare feet, at least, you know, that would be a little something for the people out there who like that sort of thing.
You'd have a little something to look at, a little something for Daddy.
Wiggling those sexy toes of his. Yum, yum.
That is my favorite quality of Mario.
Another missed opportunity. Strike 2, Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
Not looking good.
So, let's talk really quick about the enemies. And again, this is another issue I have that is purely at the feet, wink wink, of the original game, and not what is effectively a faithful remake. Like, I can't really hang this on the neck of this remake. This is a problem I have with the GBA original. But the enemies are mostly toy representations of Mario baddies, save for a few unique ones here or there and some that have some historical roots in the Donkey Kong arcade series, like Snapjaws. But like most are mechanical Shy Guys or Piranha Plants or Boos, and I'm just like, can you give Donkey Kong fans a little bit to work with here? Like, could you imagine Donkey Kong?
Throw us something.
Could you imagine Donkey Kong setting little toy representations of Donkey Kong characters or baddies against Mario instead? That might be cool. That might be fun. It's like, oh, Donkey Kong is using the trappings of Donkey Kong against Mario, rather than Donkey Kong is sending out like fake Shy Guys and Boos after Mario.
Mario knows how to handle Shy Guys.
Yeah, like Mario fights real Shy Guys and real Boos. These aren't even like actual.
You think a toy's gonna stop him?
Yeah, like come on. But there are a couple of enemies I do actually appreciate and enjoy, and I want to share those with you, Dustin, and our audience. Just put it out there that, despite my grievances with the original, I do really kind of dig the look and feel of some of these weirdos. Rams from the Donkey Kong Jungle World are little purple rhinoceroses, and I guess it might be an homage to Rambi because they're called Rams, but I mean, they don't look like Rambi at all, aside from being rhinos.
Yeah, I don't like having to kill these little baby rhinos.
Well, that's the okay.
They're very cute.
I don't like killing rhinos because what is this, skull and bones?
Yeah, I like the designs themselves on their own.
It's as close as we get to having something thematically appropriate for Donkey Kong. And I kind of dig the idea that in this if you accept my headcanon, all right, that this Donkey Kong Jungle is the theme park area based around Donkey Kong, that they would have like, it's kind of like misinterpreting what Donkey Kong Island is, and okay, yeah, we got to get we got to get those rhinos in there. Well, what are they called? Rams. It's like,
yeah, something like that.
It's like the episode of the cartoon Avatar: The Last Airbender where they see a play based on their adventures, and it's just all incorrect information.
The Ember Island Players.
Yeah. So,
what a reference to get from Hyle Russell. Wow.
Well, I like Avatar. It's a wonderful show.
That's awesome. I feel like you brought that up before, but it's just so not what I would expect from you. But it's great. It's awesome.
Sorry, I'll throw in a Better Call Saul reference if it makes you feel more at ease.
Oh no, I love that I'm outside of my comfort zone here.
I like Monchees, the little like wind up cymbal monkeys with the tail.
Those are fun.
It's as close as we get to Donkey Kong utilizing monkeys, and the idea of like a cymbal monkey hasn't really been explored all that much in Donkey Kong. Like some of Return's iconography used it in like statues and whatnot. Like Tiny Kong was at one point envisioned to maybe be a grinder monkey, not a monkey on grinder, mind you. One of those like street performing monkeys, which visually looks similar to cymbal monkeys. But I like Monchees. It's a product that the Mario Toy Company apparently sells. I don't know why, but they do. And Donkey Kong's like, I'm going to use that monkey against Mario.
Yeah, it's strange, but I like that they're usually helpful too. Like, it's not like the rhinos where you're mainly just killing them. You got to hang on to these guys' tails. That's fun.
It is. I love grabbing a monkey tail every now and again. I just do. And and then finally we have I'm going to lump these together because they're I think a delightful pair. Brickmen and Bucketmen, which are just these freaks, these deviants who like I gather that, and I've asked Gibbon this as well, but I gather that Brickman is just some sort of pervert, like laying. Now I'm adding the nude part. Like, there's nothing in the game that suggests there's a naked man inside this pile of bricks, but I like to imagine he's naked and he's just in this huge like pile of bricks, throwing bricks at you and peeping at Mario, from inside the brick pile, like the dirty, filthy man getting his jollies, throwing bricks like it's Home Alone 2.
You're right in that there's nothing to imply that he's nude, but there's also nothing implying that he's wearing clothes in there either.
No, there's no like tags. There's no tags sticking out. Nothing. Probably naked.
Yeah,
probably naked in that pile of bricks. Because I had the discussion. I had a discussion with Gibbon. This has come up before. Is Brickman an anthropomorphic pile of bricks with googly eyes, like a Platonic character, or is it somebody hiding in the pile of bricks? And it's just more fun if it's somebody hiding in the pile of bricks. Like, leave the anthropomorphic brick piles to Platonic and Rare. This is Mario versus Donkey Kong. Let there be a naked pervert in the bricks, I say.
Yeah, just give us this one thing.
And then along the same lines, there's Bucket Man, which is just a man hiding in the trash can, probably masturbating, as one does in a trash can.
Probably.
Yeah.
What a pair.
Yeah, I like them because they're, I've recast them in my mind as sexual deviants, so that gets them some brownie points with me. Not because I'm pro-sexual deviant, but I mean, I'm all for people expressing their sexuality in a positive way, but I don't think it's positive if you beat off in a trash can, in like a theme park or something. Don't do that. There's a time and a place.
He's not a role model.
Yeah, like if you want to get a trash can and do it in the privacy of your own home, go for it. But don't do that where there's people who don't want to be exposed to that. It's just not.
Yeah, don't bring that to Miniland.
It's just not what you do. So, I wanted to get your thoughts because you played co-op mode. I have not played co-op mode. You streamed co-op mode. What are your thoughts on the co-op mode, the couch co-op mode, with Toad as the second character?
So, I think it's a good optional addition. Like any game that just adds in the ability for two people to play is great. But for most of it, it really was just us. It's so easy to cheese puzzles, because you can use your co-op partner as like a little bouncy platform. You can just jump on their head. So it's a lot easier. We were really blowing through this game faster than you probably would in single player. Which was good for us because we were really running on fumes with this game.
Yeah, I could tell.
But part of it might also be because of that co-op. I feel like if you're just like one person focusing on it, you can take all the time you need to just figure out what you need to do, really think about like how you're supposed to do this puzzle. If you're playing co-op with someone and you're also like cycling through between four people, you feel that pressure of trying to get through the levels as fast as you can. And boy, there was a lot of backseat gaming.
Yeah,
there was a lot of no, go here, do this. Shut up! I can just do this. Just let me do it. I feel like the tensions were a lot higher, partially just because no one was really that into the game, except Adam. He enjoyed it, which is good. I'm glad one of us did. But yeah, all of us were kind of at our wits' end, not having a great time. And I feel like we were really expressing it. It was getting a lot more frustrating to get through this in co-op mode. Even though a lot of times, like I said, you can just cheat these puzzles. A lot of times we can just like Toad can sneak through the smaller gaps. You know how there are some puzzles where you need like the little mini Mario toy to go through the little gaps?
Yeah.
Toad can just do that. If he does the handstand, he can just walk through these gaps. You don't even need to figure out how to get little mini Mario down there.
I feel like that breaks the game.
It does, yeah. It breaks the game in a lot of ways. Some ways we appreciated because we were done. We didn't want to play anymore, and it was helping us get through faster. But it also doesn't feel fulfilling to do it that way. There were a lot of times where we were just like, well, that's not how we were supposed to beat this level, but we did.
Right. I feel like sometimes that style of outsmarting what the developers had planned can kind of work in its favor. Like I talk about the original Ukulele. One of the things I actually like about that game is how tactile the platforming can be. So you can kind of outsmart the game sometimes and just get like pages or quills in a way that they didn't intend you to. And I actually really think that's fun. But in a game that's all about the puzzle platforming, I don't like that Toad can just saunter down in a little crevice and just do the job of a, mini Mario.
Yeah. By the end, the second half of the game where and can I just say, I like the second half of the game a lot more than the first, because I feel like the levels in the first half of the game, there's 2 screens in each one, and I feel like that already is annoying. Like, it's if I can just get through this level in one screen, I'm not spending as much time in this level. I'm not getting frustrated at some of the more difficult puzzles. You're just in and out in a way where you're like, oh yeah, this wasn't too bad. This was nice and breezy. But yeah, Toad, by the time we got to there, it got to the point where we were just like, oh, we can just get all the presents right away. We'll just get all the presents and then not have to worry about them, and then just focus on the puzzles or cheating the puzzles.
Yeah, my problem, though, with the co-op mode, which I have not played, is that Toad is the co-op character. And again, there weren't any real Donkey Kong elements, as in, Donkey Kong series elements, as in Donkey Kong Country, in the original game. And so maybe changing that in the remake would be flying in the face of the spirit of the original. And at the very least, there were Toads in the original game, working at the factory, what have you. So putting the Toad in as the co-op character definitely makes sense as far as keeping the peace with the vision of the original. But I'm also like, can you give me something here, folks? Like, what if Diddy Kong was the co-op character and it was Diddy Kong trying to talk some sense into Donkey Kong with the help of Mario? And again, maybe that would just raise too many questions, and then you would have the thing where you can only play as Diddy Kong in co-op mode. I want to play as Diddy Kong in single player. This sucks. Yeah,
I don't care about Mario.
So yeah, I just when this game is Mario versus Donkey Kong, and as somebody who's all about Donkey Kong and the Donkey Kong universe, and, there's this weird disconnect where, people who are outside of our fandom, they see that Mario versus Donkey Kong is coming out, and they're like, oh, I bet you're excited. Why do you think I'm excited about this? Why?
Yeah, what about this would be exciting to a Donkey Kong fan?
Unless you are a very particular grain of Donkey Kong fan, unless you really love the arcade games and Donkey Kong 94 and the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong, of which, this was originally designed as a sequel, a direct follow-up to Donkey Kong 94. There's just nothing in here for you, really. And so seeing Toad as the co-op character, I'm like, well, this really now feels like a Mario game. Like, this is Mario versus Donkey Kong, right? Like, there's just so much Mario in here, and there's just so little for the one who's just all about DK. And, it is what it is.
Donkey Kong is here to get his ass kicked, and that's all.
Yeah, it's the least wanted outcome for somebody who only plays as Donkey Kong in games like Mario Kart and, Super Smash Brothers, or Donkey Kong characters, right? So,
right.
Not being able to play as Donkey Kong and being the only objective is kicking Donkey Kong's ass from one end of the game to another. It's just not for me, which is why it surprised me how much fun I had with the game. I just had to disassociate myself from all of that and just look at the game on its own merits and be like, okay, it's a fun game. It's just not the kind of game I'm going to be really drooling over, just having all the spittle coming out of my mouth in anticipation of playing again and again and again and again. But, as a pleasant time waster, it sounds a little dismissive, but it's fine. It's good. It's good even. It's pleasant. Pleasant is the operative word here, Dustin. If you can remove yourself from Donkey Kong's role,
Right. It's funny. I think I'm kind of in the opposite seat where I didn't enjoy this game very much, but if they had like more Donkey Kong stuff, like if the levels were like Donkey Kong Country archetypes, and I know that's totally not what the original game was, I'm just saying if it was, then I could be like, all right, well, I don't really like this game, but at least there's some stuff I'm enjoying here. But the whole package just really doesn't do anything for me. I think something I do like about this game is the music is good here and there. Like, I don't even think the whole soundtrack is good, but there's some pretty sexy tracks here. Like, anytime that saxophone shows up, I have a good time. Like in the haunted house levels. The city music is pretty good. The level results screen that sounds like where it goes da 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 da.
Like Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
we were saying
like
that every single time.
Queen and David Bowie's Under Pressure, which then Vanilla Ice ripped off for Ice Ice Baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of audio, Charles Martinet's voice clips from the original game are reused in obviously higher fidelity than what was possible in the Game Boy Advance. Even though Charles Martinet retired last year, they brought back his voice clips, which they had on file, and they were like, now you can hear them in greater clarity. Here they are. So it's a nice little curtain call for Charles Martinet, a nice little encore for his time as Mario. While Takashi Nagasato's voice work for Donkey Kong replaces the reused Grant Kirkhope clips from Donkey Kong 64 that was used in the original. So just an interesting dichotomy there where Charles Martinet has stepped down as Mario, but he's still Mario in this game, whereas the Donkey Kong voice actor from the original was already the retired voice actor of Donkey Kong from the Rare era, and now he is replaced by the current Donkey Kong voice actor. So I'm fine with it because, if you've got Martinet's audio clips, if you still have them stored from his original voice sessions, then use them because they're not going to be compressed to hell this time around. So why not? Why not let them shine as they were originally intended? And conversely, the only reason they used Grant Kirkhope's audio clips was because there was no set Donkey Kong voice actor at the time the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong came out. Nagasato didn't debut as Donkey Kong until later that year in Mario Power Tennis.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense for to use Martinet's audio since, he only just stepped down from the role of Mario not that long ago, so still having him in isn't that weird. Grant Kirkhope was Donkey Kong a long, long time ago, 20 years ago, so that would be pretty jarring if they just reused those again.
Yeah. It would have been funny, but and they,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But Yeah, there is some controversy about how they kind of clipped some of Mario's lines in this game. They kind of edited down some of the shit he would say, some of the smack he would talk to Donkey Kong.
Right.
Which actually is the subject of our first and second call here, which they're a pair. Somebody called in, and then they immediately called in again to elaborate on their thoughts. So why don't we go ahead and play those back to back, Dustin, as we launch into the call segment of the Kongversation. And if you want to call the Kongversation, if you want to be featured on air, you can call the DK Vine hotline at 1-202-630-VINE 8463. The line is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but generally, if you want to get on an episode and you want your thoughts about a particular topic to be part of that episode, call in after we announce the episode on social media or to our patrons, and then we'll make sure you're getting it, because it can kind of get lost in the shuffle beforehand. If you're just calling in. Occasionally I will pull out older calls for callsack episodes, but there's no guarantee there. And there's no guarantee you'll get on an episode anyway, time permitting. But yeah, do it. It's fine. Everybody's stressed out when they call.
Yeah, come on.
Everybody's stressed out when they call, and I'm like, if you make a fool of yourself, I won't play the call. I'm not out to humiliate you. Come on now.
Yeah, we're not going to play your call and be like, can you believe this person dared to call?
Yeah, we're not assholes, or at least I try not to be.
Yeah, not on stream anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, we're not. Look, it's a lot to put yourself out there, right? It's a lot to...
Yeah, totally.
Especially when you're doing it on a phone, it's very disconcerting. I'm terrible at leaving voicemail. It's just not something I'm good at.
I don't like talking to people on the phone much now at all.
I don't like doing this podcast, if I'm honest.
I don't like talking to people.
Yeah, ew. All right, so now that I'm self-conscious about it, we better hurry it along. Let's play these first two calls.
I think the game is worse because Mario doesn't say stupid monkey anymore. Hi, I just wanted to make a correction. Mario doesn't say stupid monkey in the original Game Boy Advance version of the game Mario vs. Donkey Kong. He actually says, you big monkey, which I think is funny still. So, game's still worse. My question to you guys is, do you think Diddy Kong would have made this game better, or would he have made it worse if he was in it?
Well, thank you for the calls. Yeah. I do like that Mario isn't as mean to Donkey Kong in this game. He was kind of a little bastard to Donkey Kong in the original. And there's that awful scene where he's laughing at Donkey Kong, and all the mini Marios are laughing at Donkey Kong. And I just want to hug him. I just want to reach out to him and be like, bullies suck, but it's okay. It's okay. They toned it down a little bit, and yeah, like it was some of the most unique voice work Martinet's ever done for Mario. Like, it was just a wide variety of stuff for him to say that isn't as like the typical kind of Mario lines you would expect. So it is a shame to like have it whittled down in some regard, but I'm okay with what we got.
Yeah, on one hand, I do like that he's not as mean, but on the other hand, I feel like it really lends itself more to it being so bland. That's my big problem with this game, is it's just not very interesting, not much personality whatsoever. And I feel like those little voice clips kind of help to give it a little personality, and now you don't really even get those.
I can see that point. For me, like, overall, I feel like the visual presentation is a lot easier on my eyes this time around. And it just, it does lose that uniqueness that the original had, for better or for worse. But I don't know. I think it still looks like it still looks nice. Bland, I might not go that far, but it does have this homogenized kind of aesthetic. Like it all the rough edges have been smoothed out to the point where it loses what made it unique and stand out in the first place.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, it's a double-edged sword where I do think the remake looks a lot nicer, but because of that, it just also kind of looks like like Mario just kind of looks the way he normally does. I don't think like very many of the levels look very interesting. They're just kind of like, I brought it up with the new circus level. It's just like the most generic you could do a circus. It's just another ice world. The city level is, I think it's like cool in that it's a unique level archetype we don't see much in Mario, but it's just a city. It's not like there's anything to it or any of these worlds.
Yeah.
But it does look better than the original GBA one, but the original GBA one just has that more unique look to it that does, I don't want to say it works since it is a pretty ugly game, but it makes it more memorable to me.
Sure.
Donkey Kong, I think, looks pretty good, though.
I'm fine with how Donkey Kong looks in this game, and if this is indeed the way Donkey Kong looks in the new Donkey Kong game, I think it works. I think I would be happy with this.
It's not my favorite way he's looked, but it's good. I don't think it's... I think it's far from, like, the worst Donkey Kong's ever looked.
Oh,
I think my only nitpick... I think my only nitpick is his head is a little big, but, you know, that could easily be fixed. And if not, it's not the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah, I haven't been a fan of Donkey Kong's proportions since 2010. Like, there's always been something that I've, like, not quite been a huge fan of. Like, oh, his forearms are too beefy, or this is just too proportioned in an odd way. But, yeah, I'm not picky at this point in time, and if this is how Donkey Kong's model is going to be in the new Donkey Kong game, as has been posited by several people, I think in the context of a regular Donkey Kong game, it would look great. It's kind of hard.
Totally,
it's kind of hard to tell in this kind of more pastel cotton candy Mario world. I think, to your point, like, what I don't like about the aesthetics of this game is it looks a lot better, and it's a lot more visually consistent, but I'm also not a fan of how Mario games generally look, unless it's a game like Odyssey,
right,
or something that has a lot of production value behind it. I don't like how modern Mario games look.
They just look kind of standard.
Yeah.
Like, not bad at all.
Yeah.
They're totally pleasing, but just not much beyond that.
Yeah. I haven't been a fan of the Mario aesthetic for quite some time, and I miss when you had a little bit more variety in it, for at least the 2D stuff. So, to our caller's question, which brought up our co-op kind of discussion, or at least touched upon what we touched upon, would I have been happier if Diddy's in there? Well, it depends what Diddy does, right? And I think, like, Diddy being in any game like this brings to mind the Regal theorem, Cameron's theory on what Diddy Kong does for the Donkey Kong character, which is, if Donkey Kong, the modern Donkey Kong, is paired with Diddy Kong, it's kind of impossible to portray Donkey Kong in a villainous light.
Right.
And so I don't think you could put, I mean, you could, for sure. You could put Diddy in there as kind of like Donkey Kong's little second in command, like causing mischief for Mario along the way. Or you could go with our co-op idea and have Diddy being like the voice of reason, trying to break through to Donkey Kong. Although that just kind of might be me trying to canonize my headcanon over Donkey Kong being brainwashed by the subliminal advertising in the Mario toy company commercial, and he's not actually in control of his actions in this game. So,
yeah, I think if you're gonna go that route, you really need to make that more apparent. Like that really just does need to be what's happening for this method to work.
Yeah.
You can fan wank it, but like there's nothing saying that's exactly what's happening, so.
Right. And I've been fan wanking it like this for 20 years, and it's gotten me through the last 2 decades. But yeah, I think probably ultimately adding Diddy to a game like this is the same problem that Koizumi posited when he talked about Jungle Beat. It's that, adding Diddy to a game like this will just raise too many questions. Why is Donkey Kong...
It would just be weird.
Yeah, why is Donkey Kong acting like this when his protege, who looks up to him and wants to be a hero like him, is right there? It's just, yeah. I can see why they remained relatively faithful to the original, and as much as I would love, or would prefer, because love might be too strong terminology to use, but as much as I would prefer a Mario versus Donkey Kong game that is more 50-50, or hell, I would take 90-10, at this point, but just has a little bit more Donkey Kong in there, to give Donkey Kong fans a little bit something to work with. I do think Diddy would have the effect of putting Donkey Kong more in the right, and to cast Mario more in a villainous light, because Diddy is so pure and so wholesome as a character, when paired with Donkey Kong, that it would probably demolish the original narrative. And again, like, this is me talking about whether Diddy Kong should be in the remake or not, but my problems are with the 2004 original in that regard, not the remake. If the remake is to be faithful to the original, then Diddy really can't be in there. But it just throws into
you'd have to change too much.
Right, and it throws into question the entire underpinnings of the series, which, again, my problem can't be with the remake then, it's with the original. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for the call. Just checking in with our live stream really quick. Freezer says, I told a bunch of people you like Avatar and they don't believe it. She also said, I died in F-Zero because I was so surprised you mentioned Avatar.
I feel like you've brought it up before.
I've brought it up before.
On it. Yeah.
I was a relatively latecomer to the series.
But it is weird.
Well, no, look, my opinions on Avatar, The Last Airbender, not the James Cameron Navi stuff, is that I wish it had been a cartoon when I was a kid, because I would have loved it. Like, I would have been all about it as a kid. And I wish I would have had the same kind of thoughtful, like, genre storytelling that's steeped in all these, like, really cool Asian-inspired tropes and mythology. I wish I would have had that, and it's great. It's a great show, and yeah. What? I can like it. It's not like I'm watching Shrek, all right?
Oh, no. Yeah, we wouldn't go that far.
All right. Should we take the next call?
Sounds good.
Cool.
Hey, my name's Kyle. Second time I'm ever calling you guys in. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a pretty interesting sub-series. I'm probably one of the few fans that likes both formats. The first Mario vs. DK game I played was Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini Land Mayhem. It was the second physical DS game, the one that released the same week as Returns. I enjoyed that a lot. Years later, I would play emulations of Donkey Kong 94 and Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Enjoyed both, but I never beat the GBA Mario vs. Donkey Kong because my emulator couldn't handle the pre-rendered graphics well, so it was prone to crashing. So I'll probably get the remake if I ever see it on sale. Overall, I can see why some people would be upset by the Lemmings taking over, but honestly, I feel like I enjoyed Mini and Mayhem the most. Though a good reason for that could be because I was 11 when I played that game compared to being an adult when I got around to playing the earlier titles. I just wish we could still continue to get DKC games alongside Mario vs. Donkey Kong And it's a shame we'll probably never get a return to the Lemming-style minigames without a dedicated touchscreen system. Finally, there's one thing I want to talk to you guys about. Since this is probably the closest you'll ever get to talking about mainline Mario, I'm curious if you guys have any rankings of the games. My favorite 2D game would probably be honestly, New Super Luigi U, and my favorite 3D game, it's a toss-up between the two Galaxy games. I think Hyle mentioned his favorite was Mario 2, and his least favorite was Sunshine, but that's as far as I can remember you guys talking about it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Well, thank you for the call. Yeah, Dustin, you talked about the mini Mario levels where, like, you've got to guide the mini Marios around, and how you found that vastly preferable to the, early half of the game. And, one of the big criticisms leveled at the series is that it did turn into kind of a Lemming-style gameplay. Like, they took the mini Mario gameplay and they just ran with that, and then kind of got away from the more arcade-style roots, the Donkey Kong arcade-style roots of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which, again, started life as a follow-up to Donkey Kong 94. And, but you prefer that. You like that style of gameplay more.
Oh, I don't like I don't mean the levels where you, have a bunch of little guys that you have to lead to, the end toy box or something. I just mean, the plus levels where you go through the game again, but you have just, one little mini Mario toy that you can do similar puzzles with, but they're more incorporated into the levels themselves rather than just collecting the TOY letters. Yeah, those I like more since they're just one screen levels. And I think, so you have a little mini Mario that has the key with them. I just think that makes it a little more fun in these levels that I don't think are super interesting. But the levels where you have the 7 little mini Marios that you have to lead to the toy box, I hate those. I had a bad time doing those.
I was under the impression you like those as well. So, okay. Apologies.
Oh, no. They were fine at first. They're not too bad at first, but I feel and part of this is just, I think it's because we were just getting really bored with the game itself. By the, I want to say 4th or 5th world, we were dreading getting to those levels. I know Andrew, Ape as we call him, he would just nope out of doing those ones. He was just no, thank you.
Just to clarify, Ape is his chosen nickname, a moniker. It's not just something you call him to be mean.
Oh yeah, we don't call him, we're not hey there, Ape. We're mean.
Oh, you big monkey. Oh.
Yeah, we should start calling him that.
Yeah. I have sympathy with the people who wanted more Donkey Kong 94, and then the actual series just evolved into something completely different. But yeah, our caller brought up a good point here, where you probably won't be seeing a lot of those Mario vs. Donkey Kong sequels, because so much of them utilize touchscreens with the DS systems.
Yeah.
And unless the Switch 2 has a way to emulate that, it just might be lost media, if you will.
Part of me wonders if they could do that, like a Switch 2 where you could play it the way of the Switch 1, but you could do a dual screen thing. That'd be cool. That'd be neat.
Yeah, it's the problem I have with Nintendo, because Nintendo always reinvents the wheel, or traditionally has reinvented the wheel with all their systems. Like, this one has a dual screen. This one is 3D. This one, uses this and that and the other, and it just makes game preservation on subsequent Nintendo consoles so difficult. And
yeah,
at the time you're oh, cool. But then when the decades pass and you're oh, I really wish we could play this game again. I wish it was commercially available. It's not, unless you have the original hardware and the original game.
Yeah. I think about how so the first Mario Maker really took advantage of the Wii U and the Wii U gamepad. But then when Mario Maker 2 came around, they really had to rework that in a way that I feel, I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like the general consensus was it just wasn't as graceful as it worked on the Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
So you miss out on stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's funny that you wanted me to rank Mario games. At the end of the call,
is what they said. Did what they say still stand up? You like Mario 2 best and don't like Sunshine?
I don't know if I would go as far as saying I don't like Sunshine. Sunshine failed to resonate with me whatsoever. I don't have any animosity towards Sunshine.
Right. I haven't played enough of Mario Sunshine to really have a strong opinion, but I don't really like that the whole thing is set in tropical levels. I kind of like having more variety in my world, but I can't speak to how it like actually plays. I think using the FLUDD for like to hover with the water jets is pretty fun. Maybe I'd like it.
It's a bit weird that the Donkey Kong Country series, which takes place in a tropical archipelago, has greater variety in each game than Mario Sunshine was able to muster.
Yeah, I think it's fine for like one game to just be like, okay, this game is just going to take place in one section of Mario's world. But yeah, it's not my preference.
So I don't know if I go so far as say that's my least favorite. I will tell you what my least favorite is, Dustin.
Okay.
Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels.
Oh yeah, that one. No, thank you.
Piece of shit that game is. So without getting too far ahead of ourselves here, this is actually a topic I am going to be revisiting in a few episodes down the line because during the hiatus, I mentioned I'm bipolar too, and I had a real like rough go of it the other week. Just depression, just typical brain imbalance. Chemicals and neurons firing incorrectly. And so
right.
I decided in my just brain-mandated despair that I would revisit, seeing that as I have Nintendo Switch Online and I never really utilize it outside of DKU games or rare games, I'm going to play Super Mario All-Stars. And I'm going to beat every game in Super Mario All-Stars just because it's been so long since I played those games, which are foundational to 2D platforming. And it's like, you know what? I haven't played these since I was a kid. I'm gonna go back and see how I do. And breeze through Super Mario Brothers. Like when I say breeze through, I mean beat the second part of the game too, where they replaced the Goombas with Buzzy Beetles. Just breeze through it. It was like, wow, this game is so
you just annihilated it.
Yeah, it was so simple compared to how I remembered it when I was 5 years old. And then I was like, all right, for the first time ever, I'm going to beat the Lost Levels. Piece of shit. That fuck game sucks.
Did it last long? Did you beat it?
I did. Beat it.
Wow, I would have I wouldn't have.
No, I've never beaten it, and I wanted to beat it, so I beat that. I beat the bonus worlds, like World 9 and the World A, B, C, and D. Like, beat them. But I hated it. It sucked. It was miserable. Just, they were right.
Understandable.
They were totally right not to bring that to the West. Because, yeah, it would have tanked Mario. It would have tanked Nintendo. They made the right call.
It's Freezer in the chat says, your favorite is Mario 2 and your least favorite is Mario 2.
Yeah. One is a sequel and one is a euphemism for pooping.
Woo! Hyle's not afraid to go there.
I'm actually going to be talking about Super Mario Brothers 2 and how my childhood fandom of that game led me to Donkey Kong Country and how linked the two are in an upcoming episode of the Kongversation. So
awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, stay tuned for that one. So, yeah. What about you, Dustin? What's your favorite Mario?
I don't want to sound like totally basic since it's one of the newest ones, but I just adore Mario Odyssey. Just everything about that game really did it for me. I'm not normally a huge fan of the 3D Mario games. Like I like them fine, but they don't really stick with me.
Yeah.
But Mario Odyssey, I think, does just such a great job of like having actual locations in a Mario world with like its own citizens who have their own cultures and currency and like landmarks. It really helps to it does some really good world building in this world where the levels are normally just like little obstacle courses, little surreal visual levels that they're just like, oh, this is how this level is, and then you're done. But Odyssey is, yeah, it just puts a lot more into making a world to be in that it feels real. It's not just, oh, here you like walk on a big cookie and then there's like a big guy made out of well, you get it.
I do.
But yeah, I really love that about Odyssey. And I normally never 100% those 3D Mario games, but I've 100%ed Odyssey like multiple times. Love that one. And for the 2D games, I guess Mario World, which I don't love as much, but I still like it a lot. I have a good time whenever I play Super Mario World. It's just pleasant visually. I have fun with it. Nice music. Just nice all around.
Super Mario World's my second favorite.
Good choice.
Yeah. So as far as 3D Mario games go, I have trouble getting into them. Super Mario 64 is like the only one I have genuine like nostalgia for. And granted, I haven't played Galaxy 2.
I like Galaxy 2. It's been a long time since I've played it. Mario 64, I think, is half of a good game. When I first start Mario 64, I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm having fun. And then by the time I get to like Shifting Sandland, I'm like, I'm never playing this game ever in my life.
Mario 64 has a very steep drop off, I would say. Yeah. But yeah, those first couple worlds, I would say the first two worlds are a lot of fun. And
yeah.
And then, I don't know, the novelty kind of wears off for me, and I just want to play Banjo-Kazooie again. Yeah. All right, well, thank you for the call. And yes, we will be talking about a mainline Mario game, although the most, like, off the beaten path mainline Mario game in just a few episodes down the line. So, yeah, stay tuned for that one.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, let's go ahead and take our next call.
The Kongversation is back, finally. Rock and roll. I missed you so much, more than I care to admit, and I'm admitting it pretty publicly here on a YouTube show. It's DKRDS here. Let me just say this about Mario vs. Donkey Kong. I 100%ed it. I think it's a very fun game. It keeps our guy in the spotlight, which is very important right now. And outside of the Toad kidnapping, I don't see it insanely out of character for DK to be picking on Mario. Maybe stealing toys is a little odd, but everybody has their things that they like to collect. So maybe that's just what he was in the mood for. My question is this. I'm all over the place right now. I'm sorry. I'm just very happy that you guys are back. Do you think adding another Kong, whether it be Cranky or Diddy, and putting them on Mario's side, like Mario reaching out to them, would make this a more full DK Vine Donkey Kong universe experience for the game? That's really it. Thank you guys for coming back. I love everything that you do. Continue the great work. Fight the good fight. Kong the good Kong.
Thank you, DKRDS. Well, everybody's on the same wavelength, are they not? We're all kind of circling back to the same idea. Like, well, what if they put another Kong in the game to give us something? Cranky would have been interesting. We talked about Diddy, but Cranky. Okay, so I understand why they didn't go down that route in 2004. This game originally started as just a direct sequel to Donkey Kong 94, Donkey Kong Plus, which would have utilized the Donkey Kong 94 style DK Senior. Post buyout, they wanted to standardize all Donkey Kong appearances, and so that everything became the rare version of Donkey Kong, starting with the title screen for Game & Watch Gallery 4. So, like, I can understand when you look at that lineage why they didn't utilize Cranky at all. But I do kind of lament that we couldn't have gotten like Cranky Kong as the devil on Donkey Kong's shoulder, like whispering in his ear, like worm tongue, like basically just being like, what if you do this? Mario will hate that. That could have been fun to see, like, or could have been a fun reveal even. Like, what if Cranky Kong was the secret final boss and it's just patterned after, like, Donkey Kong, the 1981 original, but it's Cranky Kong, right? That would have been a fun little, like, reveling in the continuity of it all, which would not have been what Nintendo or in a subsidiary of Nintendo would have done in 2004. I would have been a little bit more, like, optimistic of such a thing nowadays, but when you're doing a faithful remake, I don't think that's in the cards. But yeah, I think Cranky Kong being the secret final boss, is sort of being the mastermind behind everything, could have been a fun little thing they could have added. Again, I understand why they didn't. It's a shame, though, isn't it?
Right. It could have been like Spider-Man. He could have been the Green Goblin mask and say, first we attack his heart.
Yeah, I don't know, like, it does suck, though. It does suck as a Donkey Kong fan to, like, have a game like this come out and to have all of the, like, discussion and discourse around it being like, oh yeah, new Donkey Kong game, am I right? And you have to explain to people,
I bet you're happy.
Yeah, like, you have to explain to people, well, not really. Like, there are some people who are happy about this, and then you point to Gibbon standing over there. But then you have to explain, like, the complicated history of it all, and how this is really just a Mario game at its heart, although it's got elements that harken back to the 1981 original, but it's not really, like, honoring both halves of that legacy to the fullest extent it could, and then people just kind of walk away from you after that. Like, before you can even finish your statement explaining why you, the Donkey Kong fan, are not really that jazzed about this, despite the very jazzy soundtrack, mind you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like a little ungrateful when they say stuff like that, because it's like, well, it's a new Donkey Kong game. You should be happy and enjoy it. It's like, well, no, I don't. Sorry.
Right. It's like, oh, you like dogs, right? So you really loved Old Yeller. It's like, well, no, they shoot him at the end. Like,
yeah, I loved it until the end.
Yeah, like, fuck that. No, I like dogs, right? I don't like seeing dogs be put down. And that way with Donkey Kong, I love Donkey Kong. I don't
like seeing him get his ass kicked.
No.
By this guy who I don't care about.
Yeah, like, remember when Mario abducted Donkey Kong Sr. and tortured him in front of his son? Does anybody else remember that?
Yeah, now he's Mr. Hero.
Yeah.
Because he had his toys taken away.
Oh, and yeah, he's got a 12-inch penis too, I bet. Right, Nintendo? Jesus.
Everyone loves him. He's great at sports.
Right. Like, in the Mario golf games, he's like golfing Jesus. And everybody's just like, oh, Mario. Like, everybody's horny for him. And I'm like, all right, we get it.
So cool.
Yeah.
He's not that great.
Meanwhile, Donkey Kong is just, like, shitting in a diaper in this game, effectively.
Yeah, he gets garbage cans thrown at him, and then he falls down and cries.
I mean, it's true. It's true. He's putting a little flourish on that statement, but it's effectively true. All right, we have one more call we need to take. So I can
good.
I can sense you're ready to never discuss this game again, Dustin. So let's get you to
I don't think I'm going to talk about this with anyone after this.
Let's get you to the finish line. You can check this off your bucket list. No, you can check this off your bucket man list. Because you'll never have to discuss that freak again. All right, final call.
Hey, DK Vine, this is Fire Johnny, longtime listener, first-time caller. I wanted to get your thoughts on specifically the soundtrack in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake. Because I'd say outside of the new content and obviously the visual uplift and everything, it's probably the thing that changes the vibe of the game the most. Like, it's hard to put into words, but the original soundtrack, has that, mid-2000s, GBA crunch charm to it. And the remake has a very jazzy soundtrack, and in that sense, I'd say it's pretty faithful to both Mario and Donkey Kong more than the original game was, because Mario's always had the jazz inspirations, and then on top of that, ever since around 3D World, they've, used live orchestras, had very jazzy kind of soundtracks. And Donkey Kong as well, because Tropical Freeze has a very jazzy soundtrack, the use of, obviously, the sax and the flutes. The flutes in particular remind me of Tropical Freeze, as well as some of David Wise's post-Tropical Freeze work like Ukulele and Snake Pass. So, yeah, I'd say even though the original soundtrack has, a special nostalgic place in my heart, I'd say this new one tops it, and also I think just that more mellow vibe to it fits pretty well for a puzzle platformer. So, yeah, that's about all I got to say about the soundtrack. I was wondering if it resonated the same way with you guys or just any other thoughts you might have about it. Peace.
Thank you, Fire Johnny. Thank you for the call. So, music is something I find difficult to put into words because I'm not a musician. I don't understand music theory. I just know what I like. And so it's not something I often bring to the table for the podcast. It's something I'm woefully uneducated on as far as being eloquent discussing. I just know what I like, right? And I will say, I'm not a fan of jazz per se. I don't have any issues with jazz, but jazz just doesn't resonate with me. I've tried, I'm going to give Miles Davis a listen here and really try to get into it, really try to understand it. And it just doesn't resonate with me whatsoever, but that's fine. I will agree with what you said though. I think the soundtrack weirdly works for this game. And I think it's the mellow aspect you brought up. It kind of really helps sell the kind of low stakes, sort of passive chill of this game. It really is just kind of a no muss, no fuss. Even the stakes are so laughably small, like Donkey Kong stolen toys. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no, what do we do?
We can't make more of those.
So it's kind of a relaxing puzzle platformer. And I think the soundtrack definitely helps sell that more with this version than the GBA original did.
I agree. I mean, I brought it up earlier in the show. I don't think a lot of tracks are very memorable, but there were a few here and there where I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I'm digging this."
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's memorable. I couldn't hum anything in this game for you except maybe the title screen, which just utilizes the familiar Mario and DK arcade motifs a little bit, but yeah, it's it works for what it is and for what the game is. So, and I do think it helps change the vibe a little bit, and I found the vibe a lot more palatable this time around than I did with the GBA original. So maybe it had a greater effect on me than I realize. I just can't really put it into this conceptualized idea that I can share easily on my audio podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can agree with that. It's been so long since I played the original that I don't even really remember any of the music, but I don't think I even had, here I was able to praise a couple tracks, and I don't think I was able to do that at all with the original. So yeah, I'd say it's an upgrade.
So, Dustin, wrapping up, our thoughts on this.
Okay.
I'm a little bit surprised at how much I dug this for what it was, right? Like, do not get me wrong. I do not want this to be the forever direction of Donkey Kong, nor do I think this represents anything of the sort. It's just, I think the context of when this came out versus when the original came out, where I am in my life now, and plus the way they did change the presentation made this click a lot more for me this time around than the original game did. Like I said, low stakes is the operative term here. Very low stakes, very casual, like easy breezy, beautiful. It's a fun little puzzler platform. It's cute and it has its charms.
I get you. I'm glad you enjoyed it more this time.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sorry you hated it so much.
Well, hating it so much, again, is strong, because I didn't like it, but it's not like it's like the worst game in the world. It's not like I thought it was frustrating. I thought it was boring in a lot of places. But when I said earlier in the show that it is a functional product, I did mean that. Like, it's not like some buggy, unplayable experience. You get that with a lot of games these days. And this game is a very professionally made game that just does not appeal to me personally.
Professionally made, Dustin Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody likes it, it says on the back.
It's competent. Yeah, like, Nintendo doesn't release just shoddy, buggy shit. They never have. Right? So, yeah, like, that's not surprising for me. Honestly, like, aside from my quibbles with the original game, which are grandfathered in for this game, I think this is my ideal for what a remake should be. And let me explain. My biggest issue with remaking anything, any sort of video game, is that to me, a game's original presentation just contains so much of its heart and soul. And the second you begin tinkering with it, even like modernizing the graphics or adding a fight with kerosene, it's like putting a mustache on the Mona Lisa, right? It's just, what are you doing? That's not necessary. It was fine the way it was in the context of its time. And so the original magic begins to seep out when you alter it. And I don't know, maybe it's because I despise the original so much, so virulently that, like, there's nowhere to go but up for me. And so that's why, because when your expectations are rock bottom anyway, and you come into it and you're like, oh, I'm surprised because you had nowhere else to go but up. I don't know. But I do think the art direction for the game, while homogenized, while maybe less interesting on the surface, is a marked improvement. And I feel like they surprisingly remained remarkably faithful and even reverential to the original game. And it's not a game I would say like, oh yeah, you've got to honor it 100%. Like, but you can see that when you compare the two. Like the opening cutscene even preserves all of the little details in the GBA version. Doesn't really just go off and say like, no, let's give Donkey Kong a different type of couch this time around. It was like every detail is kind of preserved and just brought it to greater graphical clarity. And I think it's interesting. And I like that idea. Like, this is not the game I would put on a shrine and worship, but I'm glad they did it because I like to see that. I'm all about like, don't alter the past too much. Don't, make Han shoot first. Don't add a bunch of wiggling dewbacks in the background. And it's not like the Donkey Kong Country GBA remakes, which I do really like, but it always just kind of weirds me out when they change things in those games. Because, like, a lot of times they change them for the worse, let's be honest. They'll obliterate these quiet, poignant moments like the end of Donkey Kong Country 2 with just incessant character chatter. And you're just like, well, you pissed in it now. It's ruined.
Right.
So I do like how faithful it is. I like when any game is faithful in this regard to the original. And yeah, like, again, Mario vs. Donkey Kong is not a game I would necessarily require that utmost faithfulness, but I can understand why NST would want this to be faithful. It was their first game, effectively, so I can see why they would hold it in such high standard, and I'm sure for the fans of this series, it's really cool to get this. So, that being said, yeah, you're not going to get a Donkey Kong fix from the game. If you are like some sicko Donkey Kong completionist like me and want to pick up every appearance of Donkey Kong, then don't go into this game thinking it's going to scratch the itch caused by the rash of not having a new standalone Donkey Kong game for 10 years. It's not going to do it. But, Donkey Kong's model looks cool in this game. And if you can sort of separate your mind, divorce your preconceptions and hang-ups about this having Donkey Kong in the title and being the antagonist, or if you're just a general Nintendo fan and you, I don't know, really like Mario, I don't know. Some people seem to like the character. Some people seem to like the series.
He has a couple fans.
It's news to me. I'm just finding out, but apparently it's a thing where people find the character of Mario endearing, despite the fact that he abducted a gorilla and tortured said gorilla in front of his son. Like, I feel like that should have canceled him permanently, but apparently, if you're rich and powerful enough, you can get away with anything. So anyway, yeah, pick it up. It's a lovely way to whittle away the time, despite Mario's various crimes that he should be jailed for. It's got a man beating off in bricks.
What else could you want?
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.